I ate it by mistake. I have searched high and low, and I cannot find this flipping Easter egg. So if you want the swear words, you can get swear words today. I'll probably find it at Christmas, but who knows? I'll report after Easter whether I've actually found it. So as you can see on the tables, we're going to do some activities during the talk today. It'll either work or it'll be a total disaster, but let's go for it. So, obviously next week will be Holy Week. The week before the events of Easter weekend, the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. We're coming to the end of the 6 weeks of Lent and the period of waiting for Easter. And I'm going to confess my sins now. What I intended to give up for Lent lasted 3 days.
That's why God's hidden that Easter egg.
Yeah, that's why God's hidden my Easter egg. But I also challenged myself to do a Bible reading every day, and I'm almost there. I'm 2 days behind, but I'm going to catch that up this afternoon. So some good, some bad. The thing is, we know what we're waiting for and what was going to happen. But the people in the time of Jesus had no idea what was to come and what to expect. So we are better able to deal with the events that are going to happen in the coming week, the events of the crucifixion, because we know that the resurrection will happen. We know the events of 2,000 years ago, but Jesus and his friends and followers were actually living the events and had no idea what was to come. We start our run up to Easter on Sunday, the 6th Sunday in Lent, and traditionally known as Palm Sunday. Jesus arriving in Jerusalem, greeted by crowds and big celebrations. And I'm just going to read the story of those events. I've left you some palm crosses on the table to take home if you wish. If you need more, there's more at the front. So let's listen to the story of the events of Palm Sunday. As Jesus was approaching Bethphage and Bethany, near the hill called the Mount of Olives, he sent off 2 of his disciples, telling them, "Go into the village just ahead of you, and there you will find a colt tied, on which no one has ever yet ridden. Untie it and bring it here. And if anybody asks you, 'Why are you untying it?' just say, 'The Lord needs it.'" So the messengers went off and found things just as he'd told them. In fact, as they were untying the colt, the owners did say, "Why are you untying it?" And they replied, "The Lord needs it." So they brought it to Jesus, and throwing their cloaks upon it, mounted Jesus on its back. Then, as he rode along, people spread out their coats on the roadway. And as he approached the city, where the road sloped down from the Mount of Olives, the whole crowd of disciples joyfully shouted praises to God for all the marvellous things they'd seen him do. "God bless the King who comes in the name of the Lord," they cried. "God bless the King." Personally, I love Palm Sunday. It's one of those Sundays where I actually I shouldn't say one of those Sundays when I look forward to going to church. Of course I look forward to going to church every Sunday. But for me, Palm Sunday is a bit special. So you can just imagine the atmosphere in Jerusalem. It's a bit like it would be in London at a royal wedding, or in the streets of a town celebrating that your team has won the FA Cup or something. Crowds cheering, everybody happy, people waving palm leaves, and Jesus riding through the crowds on the donkey which had been brought to him. No one had any idea of the dramatic events which were to come. Only Jesus himself knew the emotional roller coaster that was ahead. He knew that by going into Jerusalem, he was taking a big risk, but he also knew that he had to do it. And we're going to sing now. Let's sing, "Give Me Joy in My Heart." Sing Hosanna. And Pretend you're there with your palm crosses. Let's have a lovely, lively song. So, after the celebrations of Palm Sunday come the events of Holy Week. A roller coaster up and down week. We start with the joy of Palm Sunday. Then we come to the anger of Jesus in the temple, an intimate supper with the disciples, walking and waiting in the garden, all leading to a violent arrest, a manipulated trial, and ending with death on the cross. And during the session this morning, we're going to create an Easter garden to remind us of some of these events of Holy Week. We're going to start our Easter garden with the first event of Holy Week, as the stories tell us, the anger of Jesus in the temple. The temple had been built as a house of prayer for all nations. It was always busy with people coming and going, trading and money changing. And Jesus entered the temple on his first day in Jerusalem and was angered to see the double dealing and corrupt activities that were going on. He chose this first day to drive out the bad practice and the bad traders. Jesus enters the temple and drives out the merchants and money changers. And this is what happened. Jesus had seen enough. It was time for action. So now, on his second day in the city, he marched into the temple precincts and began driving out those who were buying and selling. He overturned the tables of those changing the money. He upset the seats of the dove sellers, and he stopped the priests and the Levites carrying their sacred vessels. God said, "My house shall be a house of prayer for all nations, for everyone in the world. You people who run this place, you've turned it into a den of thieves. The poor come and you make them poorer." Jesus didn't want to see the temple being filled with the dirt and grime of bad dealings. So the first thing that we're not putting, because Daniel thankfully has already put it, into our Easter garden is soil, to remind us of the dirt and the things that were going on in the temple. So your soil is already in your pot. If anybody wants a pot, there's a spare one here, Carol. Sarah. and some tables have got two on, so you can share. So I'd like you, on top of your soil, just pat it down a bit, and you've also got a cup of gravel. So just to add your gravel on the top to the soil. Just sprinkle it over. Doesn't have to be posh. Has everybody got one of these? Everyone got this? Yeah, just use your gravel, just tip it over to make the dirt and the base of your Easter garden.
Save any gravel for later?
No, there's a spare one on that table, Crystal, if you want one to take home. Sure. Spare one there, Darren.
I'm just listening.
He's just hiding round the corner.
No,
So,
man.
that's our first thing in our Easter garden. As we move through Holy Week, there are several events relating to gardens. There's the peace and calmness of the countryside. After Jesus had cleansed the temple, he and the disciples went out of the city into the country to get away from the noise and busyness of the town. So now I would like you to add to your garden some symbols that remind us of the peace and quiet of a garden. In your little pots there should be some grassy stuff and also some flowers, reminding us that Jesus is the gardener who brings new life and hope. So would you like to add your grass and your flowers to your garden? If you want to add more flowers, Daniel will let you pick the pansies from outside later. Okay, everybody got their bits added? You don't have to cover the whole thing because you've got lots of extra bits to put in. Yeah, just keep it to one side. Okay, if our seeds and plants are to grow, they need to be nurtured and cared for as Jesus nurtures and cares for us. An essential part of the nurturing is the provision of food and water. We've provided the soil as the food, and now we need to add some water. And in your little tubs, you should find some pebbles, white shiny pebbles, to symbolise the water in the garden. So add those to your garden.
I've never known you water quiet.
There's a lot of concentration going on. Oh, we were meant to do that later, but never mind. So let's remind ourselves of another event of Holy Week, which involved water. The night before Jesus was sent to the cross, he shared a last meal with his friends, the disciples, something we now know as the Last Supper, when he shared bread and wine as part of the meal. But before he did that, the Bible tells us that Jesus rose from the table, gathered up a towel, poured water into a bowl and began to wash the feet of his disciples. And this task was a symbol of what he wanted the disciples to do once he'd gone, to care for one another and put others first. He said to his disciples, "I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet. So you must be ready to do as I have done and wash one another's feet." He was challenging them, as he challenges us today, to love one another as he has loved you. So we've added our water to our garden. As we get towards the end of Holy Week, moving towards Good Friday, things start to turn darker. And Jesus knows that his time is coming to an end. After the supper, he shared with the disciples, they went to a place known as the Garden of Gethsemane, another reference to gardens. During that time in the garden, Jesus prayed to his Father to save him from the pain of the death on the cross. And it was whilst he was in the garden, praying this prayer, that Judas betrayed him by turning him in to the Roman soldiers. Jesus had worked out a sign to identify Jesus to the soldiers. "The one that I kiss is the one that you need. Seize him." And that's exactly what he did. Judas greeted Jesus with a kiss, after which Jesus was immediately seized and taken to the governor's palace to stand trial. And so we move to the events of Good Friday, when despite his innocence, Jesus was found guilty and sentenced to death. "Crucify him" was the chant from the crowd, and that was indeed what they did. Harrowing by any standards, the crowd twisted thorn twigs into a crown, stripped him, spat on him, and led him to the cross. And the next thing we're going to add to our gardens is a cross. I'm going to ask you to make your crosses. You can make one. I actually made 3 to symbolise the hill with 3 crosses, but it's up to you. You should have some little twigs in your box and some string. Make a cross, tie them together with the string. It doesn't matter which way you do it, just make it look like a cross. There's no right or wrong answer. Whilst you're doing that, I'm going to ask Remy to play a song. Thanks, Remy. And so on that Good Friday, when, as the Bible records, darkness came over the whole countryside and Jesus hung on the cross until he passed away, his friends and family looked on and were distraught. They watched as Jesus' body was taken to the tomb and secured with a huge stone placed at the entrance. And so on your table you should have something which resembles a tomb. It's kind of, yeah, you need a bit of artistic license with your tomb, but then, as I said, who knew what the tomb looked like? So you should have a tomb and a rock to place in front of the tomb to complete your Easter garden. Andy, you have to bother with the tomb.
It's in the story.
There's some other bits of cardboard. You can't seriously put this online, Darren.
Yeah.
There's some other bits of cardboard if you want a different shaped tomb. So that is your Easter garden complete. To remind you of those events of Holy Week. And when I was sitting in the office the other day, I noticed this on the wall and I thought this was an appropriate reminder. This was on the wall in the office. I asked Jesus, "How much do you love me?" "This much," he answered, and stretched out his arms and died. So that is the final part of Good Friday. But as I said at the beginning, we know that there was more to come. We feel sad at the events of Good Friday, but we know that there's glory to come. Unlike those followers of 2,000 years ago, we're able to look forward to the events of Easter Sunday, knowing that there is joy to come. And I want to read this little passage to you. It had been 3 days since the crucifixion. Jesus had promised that on the third day he would rise. Friday was day 1, Saturday was day 2. Friday evening was quiet. Saturday was sad. On Friday the devils danced. On Saturday the demons feasted. On Friday the disciples fled. On Saturday they wept. On Friday heaven's finest son died and was buried. On Saturday he spoke not a word. On Friday the angels lowered their heads. On Saturday they kept their vigil. But on Sunday, on the third day, in the pre-dawn hours, in the heart of Joseph's tomb, the heart of Jesus began to beat. It was Sunday morning after the Friday execution. The sky was dark, the disciples had scattered. Jesus was dead and buried. Yesterday's news. But then there was a violent earthquake. An angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning and his clothes were white as snow. The angel said to the woman, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said." Had such words never been spoken, had the body of Jesus decayed into dust in the borrowed tomb, you would not be here listening. But the words were spoken and the resurrection changed everything. He is risen. We rejoice on Easter Sunday. We hopefully will eat lots of chocolate when I find my Easter egg. And give thanks that Jesus died on the cross in the darkest of circumstances, taking our sins on his shoulders, so that we can live in the knowledge and comfort that we are forgiven and loved by God. Jesus defeated death to give us eternal life. And so, as you look at your Easter garden this week, let it remind you of some of those events of the special week. When you see it, stop for a moment and reflect. Give thanks for gardens, for flowers, for grass, for food that they provide. But most importantly, give thanks for Jesus, who took the pain and suffering of the cross, and give thanks that he rose again so that we can celebrate the joys of Easter. And I want to finish this morning with a song, a joyful song. This is the day when he rose again. Thank you, everybody. You've noticed you've got a strip of white paper in your thing. That's if you so wish to turn your Easter garden from a chocolate box into something more Eastery-fied. Stick it round the outside. We've got some sellotape here. You can decorate it. If you'd like to take your Easter gardens home, please do. If you wouldn't, then
Please take them home anyway.
Darren, it's your problem.